Dr. Amina al-Mansouri stood in the dimly lit chamber beneath the great Sphinx, her heart pounding as she slowly uncovered the intricate carvings on the walls. The air was thick with centuries of dust, and the weight of history pressed on her shoulders. A scholar by trade and an explorer at heart, she had longed for this moment, this discovery that would forever change the course of her life. But nothing could prepare her for what she was about to find. As she brushed away layers of dirt and ancient stone, her fingers grazed something colder than the surrounding rock. A small, yet remarkably detailed golden amulet emerged from the depths of the earth. She studied it closely, her breath catching in her throat. The intricate design was unmistakable. It was a royal symbol, an insignia tied to Egypt's long-lost dynasty, one that had been erased from history centuries ago. This amulet, delicate yet powerful, held more than just historical significance. It linked her directly to a bloodline she never imagined she'd be connected to, one that belonged to the pharaohs themselves. Her mind raced as the pieces began to fall into place. Amina, a descendant of common folk, had always been told that her family had no significant ties to Egypt's ancient nobility. But this discovery, the amulet, the hidden chamber, suggested otherwise. She felt a chill run down her spine. Could this be true? Could she be connected to the royal family, to a bloodline lost to time and buried beneath centuries of secrets? The chamber felt suffocating now, the walls closing in around her. As she gazed at the artifact, a shadow moved behind her, so subtle that she almost mistook it for a trick of the light. But then she heard it, the faintest whisper, the sound of someone breathing just beyond her line of sight. Amina's pulse quickened. She turned, but the chamber was empty, save for the ancient carvings and the unearthly silence that surrounded her. But that whisper. It was unmistakable. It was a voice she knew, a voice that had haunted her nightmares for years. He was supposed to be dead, the person she thought she had left behind long ago, someone from her past who she believed had vanished forever. Someone who had been watching her every move, ever since her research had first led her to the Sphinx. The realization struck her like a bolt of lightning. The artifact wasn't just a relic of the past. It was a key to a much darker secret, one that her supposed dead relative had been protecting for decades. But why? And what did it mean for her now? As the seconds stretched into eternity, the hairs on the back of her neck stood up. The truth she'd uncovered in the Sphinx's depths was far more than a fascinating historical find. It was a dangerous and inescapable legacy. And the person watching her from the shadows wasn't just interested in uncovering history, they were determined to control it. Could this hidden heir, this person from her past, be the true descendant of Egypt's royal bloodline, intent on reclaiming a throne long lost? Or was there something far more sinister at play, something that threatened not only Amina's life but the very foundations of everything she had believed about her heritage? With a final glance at the amulet in her hands, Amina realized she was no longer simply an archaeologist searching for answers. She was part of a much larger, far more dangerous story, and its ending could rewrite the history of Egypt itself. The Forbidden Tomb. The sun had barely risen over the Valley of the Kings when Professor Langdon first laid eyes on the ancient map, its edges frayed with time, the ink fading into ghostly scribbles. He had stumbled upon it in an obscure collection of forgotten manuscripts, tucked away in a dusty corner of a private collection. But as soon as his fingers traced the delicate parchment, a thrill ran through him. This was no ordinary map. It depicted a previously unknown tomb, marked with symbols that had been lost to history, leading to a place deep within the valley's heart. Langdon's pulse quickened as he carefully studied the map, his trained eyes catching every minute detail, the alignment of the stars, the path to the hidden tomb, and the unmistakable reference to a long-forgotten pharaoh whose existence had been erased from Egypt's official history. This was it. The discovery of a lifetime. He immediately gathered his most trusted colleague, Selina, a brilliant archaeologist who shared his passion for the mysteries of ancient Egypt. They had worked together for years, unearthing treasures and uncovering secrets buried beneath centuries of sand. But this was different. The tomb promised more than just artifacts or treasures, it hinted at an entire civilization's lost history, a history that could change everything. The two of them set off to the Valley of the Kings, navigating through the labyrinth of tombs and chambers, searching for the hidden entrance. As they dug deeper into the earth, Selina's sharp mind detected something that Langdon had missed. Beneath the surface of the tomb's sealed doorway was a strange symbol, carved into the stone like an ancient warning. It was a symbol of death, a mark placed by those who feared the curse that guarded the tomb. Langdon, however, was undeterred. His obsession with Egypt's hidden truths drove him forward, pushing aside any lingering doubts about the curse. This was the moment he had waited for, this was his legacy. With trembling hands, he unlocked the final seal, and the tomb's heavy stone door creaked open. The air inside was thick with centuries of untouched dust, and the faint scent of ancient decay filled their lungs. They stepped inside, the faint glow of their torches revealing murals of gods and pharaohs, and golden relics glinting in the dim light. But something felt off, something about the silence, the way the tomb seemed to hold its breath. And then it happened. As they ventured deeper into the tomb, something in the air shifted, a low rumble reverberated through the walls. Selina's eyes widened in sudden realization, but before she could speak, a strange, pulsing light erupted from the center of the tomb. It was too late. Langdon's hand reached for a small, intricately carved statue that sat on an altar, its eyes gleaming with malevolent intent. In that instant, the curse was unleashed. The ground beneath them trembled violently, and the walls seemed to close in on them. The light intensified, growing blindingly bright before it dissipated into an unnatural silence. Langdon's heart raced in panic, but Selina, who had always been the more grounded of the two, was already looking around, her face pale with horror. Something was wrong, deeply wrong. The air had thickened with a sense of dread, and Langdon felt an icy chill crawl down his spine. The tomb had been untouched for centuries, yet now it felt alive, as if it were feeding on the intruders who dared to disturb its slumber. Selina collapsed to the floor, clutching her chest. Langdon rushed to her side, his mind racing. What had they unleashed? The curse, once dormant, was now fully awake, and it seemed to be claiming its first victim. Selina's eyes glazed over as the light dimmed in her face. Her last words were a strained whisper, "We shouldn't have come." Before Langdon could react, she breathed her last breath. Her body lay motionless on the stone floor, and the cursed tomb began to quiet once more, as if nothing had ever happened. Langdon's mind reeled. He had witnessed death before, but this was different. Selina was gone, taken by a force older than time itself. The map, the tomb, the curse, it had all been real. And now, Langdon was left alone, with nothing but the weight of his actions and the chilling realization that he had just awakened a far more dangerous mystery than he could ever have imagined. He fled the tomb, desperate to escape the wrath of the curse. But as he emerged into the daylight, he knew that he wasn't the only one who would suffer the consequences. Selina's estranged daughter, Amira, had been following their discoveries from the shadows, and when she learned of her mother's tragic fate, the true journey began. Amira, a fierce and determined woman with a hidden thirst for justice, vowed to uncover the full truth behind Selina's death, and to exact revenge on whoever was responsible for unleashing the horrors of the tomb. But as she digs deeper, she begins to uncover more than just the cause of Selina's death. She begins to unravel a conspiracy that stretches back to the very foundations of Egypt's ancient civilization, a conspiracy that could destroy everything Langdon and Selina had worked for. Love across time. Seth Carter had always been a man of logic, driven by facts, history, and the endless search for knowledge. A historian with a specialty in ancient Egyptian culture, he had spent his life studying the lives of the long-dead pharaohs, researching their dynasties, and uncovering the intricacies of their rule. But no book, no artifact, and no lecture had ever prepared him for the strange, vivid dreams that began haunting him each night. It started as a whisper, a voice, soft and distant, calling his name. At first, he dismissed it as a trick of the mind, a byproduct of his long hours of research. But as the nights wore on, the dreams grew more vivid. He saw her, Nefertiti, the beautiful and enigmatic queen, her regal presence filling the vast halls of the palace, her gaze both captivating and sorrowful. He felt her touch, her breath on his skin, though he was thousands of years removed from her time. And in every dream, there was a sense of urgency, as though she were trying to tell him something he had to understand before it was too late. As his obsession with Nefertiti deepened, Seth delved further into his research, poring over ancient texts, deciphering hieroglyphs, and analyzing royal artifacts that had once belonged to her. He discovered that Nefertiti's reign had been shrouded in mystery, with historians unsure of her fate after her husband, Pharaoh Akhenaten, died. Some believed she vanished from the historical record, while others speculated that she had ruled in secret, or perhaps even taken on the role of pharaoh herself after Akhenaten's death. But in the deepest corners of the ancient tombs, Seth uncovered something far more intriguing, a lost letter, sealed with the mark of Nefertiti herself, hidden among royal scrolls. The letter spoke of an ancient prophecy, one that linked Nefertiti's soul to a future time, and to a man who would come to understand the true power of her legacy. Seth was stunned. The connection was undeniable. The letter, though written thousands of years ago, seemed to have been written with him in mind. He had no idea how, but he was the one she had been calling to in his dreams. Yet, the more he unraveled about her past, the more questions arose. Why had this prophecy been kept hidden? What was so crucial about his connection to Nefertiti that would make it worth keeping secret for so long? It was during one of his many late-night sessions at the university library that he met her, Layla. She was a graduate student studying Egyptology, her dark eyes sparkling with intelligence and curiosity, her hair pulled back into a loose braid. Their encounter was serendipitous, at least that's how it seemed at first. She had come to consult a specific book on ancient Egyptian burial rites, and as fate would have it, it was the same book Seth was researching. They exchanged polite pleasantries, but there was something about her presence that made Seth's heart race. As they began discussing their shared interest in Nefertiti and her mysterious disappearance, Seth couldn't help but notice the uncanny resemblance Layla bore to the queen in his dreams. Her features were strikingly similar, the high cheekbones, the graceful posture, and the same penetrating gaze that seemed to look right through him. His breath caught in his throat, and for a moment, time seemed to stop. Layla, too, seemed taken aback. She shifted uncomfortably under his intense gaze, and for reasons she couldn't explain, felt a strange connection to Seth, a pull, as though they had met before. She'd been drawn to Egyptology for as long as she could remember, often feeling a sense of déjà vu when she studied its ancient history, as if it were part of her own past. But she never imagined it would lead her to this moment, standing in front of a man who seemed to be the embodiment of the very history she had spent years studying. As their friendship grew, so did their feelings for one another. Their late-night discussions turned into heated debates, then quiet moments of shared understanding. They uncovered more than just historical facts, they uncovered a bond that transcended time itself. Seth felt as though he had always known Layla, that their connection went beyond coincidence. In her presence, he no longer just studied Nefertiti's life, he felt as though he was living it. But as their relationship deepened, so did the danger. Seth and Layla discovered that they were not the only ones aware of the ancient prophecy. A secretive order, dedicated to preserving the ancient bloodlines of Egypt, had been watching them closely. They knew of the connection between Seth, Layla, and Nefertiti, and they would stop at nothing to ensure that the prophecy remained sealed, forever. As Seth and Layla grew closer, their love became the key to unlocking the truth behind Nefertiti's disappearance and the ancient prophecy. But with each revelation, they were faced with a terrifying question: was their love truly a blessing, or was it a curse meant to repeat history's darkest mistakes? The more they learned, the more it became clear that Seth and Layla were destined to play roles far greater than they could have ever imagined. Their love was tied to a cycle that had existed for millennia, one that had been hidden away in the sands of time. The question was no longer just about whether they could uncover the truth about Nefertiti, it was whether they could survive the forces determined to keep it buried. In the final moments of their quest, as they uncovered the lost tomb of Nefertiti, they realized that the prophecy had been true all along. Seth and Layla were not only linked to the queen's past, they were the key to breaking the cycle that had bound her soul to the earth for centuries. But the cost of that truth would change their lives forever, and they would be forced to choose between love and fate, between preserving the past and embracing the future. Would they be the ones to free Nefertiti's soul, or would they become the next chapter in the cursed history of Egypt? The Pharaoh's Secret. King Osiris was a name whispered in both awe and fear across the lands of Egypt, though most believed his story had come to an end over 3 millennia ago. Ancient texts and royal records told of his untimely death at the peak of his power, the end of a reign marked by unprecedented wealth and conquest. Yet the truth, buried beneath the shifting sands of time, was far more complicated, and far more dangerous, than any historian could have imagined. The discovery came under the most unexpected of circumstances. Dr. Rachel Ford, a seasoned archaeologist and Egyptologist, had been working on her latest excavation in the ruins of a lesser-known temple near Thebes. She and her team had been searching for traces of lost royal families, but what they unearthed instead was an ancient stone tablet, so worn with age that its meaning was nearly indecipherable. As Rachel carefully cleaned the surface, the symbols slowly came into focus. Not only was it a record of Osiris's death, but also a warning. The tablet revealed that Osiris had faked his own death to escape a prophecy, one that foretold the fall of his dynasty and the collapse of Egypt itself. As she deciphered the ancient script, a chilling realization set in: Osiris had not died on the battlefield, nor was he a victim of natural causes. The king had orchestrated a grand deception, faking his death to vanish from the public eye. What had he been hiding? And what had driven him to such drastic measures? Rachel's excitement quickly turned to unease as she unearthed more artifacts from the royal crypt, a gold mask, worn by the king in life, and a series of cryptic scrolls. Each discovery led to another mystery, another clue pointing towards something far darker than Rachel had anticipated. It was clear that Osiris had gone to great lengths to protect a secret, one so profound that it was worth erasing his existence from the annals of history itself. Her growing obsession with the puzzle consumed her. She traveled to Cairo, sought out private collections, and scoured dusty archives for any information that might shed light on Osiris's fate. But the more she uncovered, the more she realized that someone else was also hunting for the truth, someone who would stop at nothing to keep it buried. Rachel's breakthrough came when she learned of a secret group of powerful elites, descendants of those who had once served Osiris in his court. These individuals, operating from the shadows, held a deep connection to the long-lost king and were determined to protect the legacy he had left behind. But their motives were far from pure. These descendants had risen to positions of great influence, controlling vast financial and political networks in the modern world. And now, they were watching Rachel, their every move cloaked in secrecy, their eyes always on the prize, the mysterious treasure that Osiris had hidden before his disappearance. As Rachel dug deeper, she found herself increasingly drawn into a web of deceit and conspiracy. What had Osiris left behind? It was said to be a treasure of immeasurable value, a mystical artifact that held the power to control the course of history itself. The closer Rachel came to understanding the scope of the secret, the more she realized that she was not just uncovering ancient history, she was stepping into a world of modern power struggles, where the very fate of nations could be swayed by the truths Osiris had hidden. Her obsession led her to a meeting with Alec Grant, a charming and enigmatic historian with connections to the secretive elites. He claimed to be an ally, offering Rachel access to exclusive resources and confidential information that could help her solve the mystery. But as their professional relationship deepened into something more personal, Rachel began to suspect Alec had his own agenda. A dangerous one that involved manipulating the very secrets she had uncovered. Rachel's life took a perilous turn when she uncovered the final piece of the puzzle, a secret chamber hidden deep within the temple complex. Inside, she found a golden sarcophagus, its lid adorned with intricate carvings of Osiris himself. But as Rachel opened the sarcophagus, a flood of memories rushed into her mind, visions of the ancient king's life, his rise to power, and the fateful decisions he had made to avoid the prophecy. The final revelation came in the form of a letter, written by Osiris himself. In the letter, Osiris confessed his fear of the prophecy, which predicted the collapse of Egypt at the hands of a hidden heir, a son born to a secret lover, who would one day rise to overthrow the kingdom. To protect his dynasty, Osiris had faked his death and entrusted his true heir with a powerful artifact that could bend the course of history to his will. But there was a catch. The artifact had the power to either save or destroy the world, depending on who wielded it. Rachel stood frozen, the weight of the revelation crashing down on her. She was not just an academic discovering lost history, she was now entangled in a global conspiracy, with forces moving against her at every turn. The bloodline of Osiris still existed, hidden among the powerful elites of the modern world, and someone within that line would soon rise to claim the artifact and fulfill the prophecy. But who? And what did it mean for her? As Rachel raced against time, she realized that the key to saving or destroying everything she held dear lay in the hands of the person who could uncover the artifact first. The question wasn't just about Osiris's secret, it was about her role in preventing a catastrophic event that could alter the future of mankind. In the end, the truth about Osiris's death and the prophecy he had tried to avoid would have the power to unravel everything. Family secrets, global power struggles, and even Rachel's own identity. The battle for the artifact was about to begin, and Rachel was right in the middle of it, caught between two worlds, one foot in the ancient past, and the other in the dangerous present. The Alchemist's Promise. Dr. Nadir Al-Khalil was a man driven by an insatiable curiosity for the mysteries of the ancient world, a chemist whose name was known in academic circles for his groundbreaking work in historical alchemy. His reputation, however, was not built solely on his rigorous scientific methods or his published theories, it was built on his obsession with the elixir of life, the fabled potion said to grant immortality. It all began with the discovery of an ancient manuscript hidden deep within the library archives of the University of Cairo. The fragile pages, worn and yellowed with age, chronicled the life of Minahet, an alchemist from the time of Cleopatra. The manuscript was said to contain the formula for the elixir, a secret that had eluded scholars for centuries. According to legend, Minahet had perfected the formula but had disappeared shortly after, leaving behind only cryptic notes, strange symbols, and an enigmatic map leading to a secret chamber hidden within the tombs of Alexandria. Nadir was instantly captivated. His scientific mind, always thirsting for proof and answers, could not resist the pull of the elixir's promise. He spent years deciphering the alchemist's notes, obsessively collecting the rarest ingredients and studying the obscure alchemical texts that had been passed down through generations. Each clue brought him closer to the ultimate revelation, but with every step, the danger increased. Nadir was not alone in his quest. He soon discovered that others, more secretive and far more dangerous, had been following Minahet's trail long before he ever had. A shadowy organization, known as the Order of the Eternal Flame, had been hunting for the elixir for centuries. Their members were powerful, influential figures hidden behind facades of philanthropy and academia, manipulating world events to secure the elixir for their own purposes. They were not just interested in immortality, they were interested in power, control, and using the elixir to dominate the course of history itself. Despite the increasing danger, Nadir could not stop. The allure of the elixir, the promise of eternal life, consumed him. It was a temptation he could not resist. As he followed the clues through ancient ruins, deciphered alchemical symbols, and gathered the rarest ingredients known to man, he discovered that the elixir was far more than a mere concoction. It was a key to an ancient power hidden deep beneath the sands of Egypt, a power that could transcend life and death. But the closer Nadir came to the elixir, the more his life began to unravel. The Order of the Eternal Flame had discovered him. Their agents, masked in the guise of scholars and philanthropists, followed his every move, waiting for the moment when he would unlock the final secret. They would stop at nothing to obtain the elixir, and they were willing to kill anyone who got in their way. Nadir's obsession began to cloud his judgment. The once rational chemist found himself drawn into the world of the occult, convinced that the elixir could not only grant eternal life but could unlock hidden potentials within the human soul. He started to believe that he was the one meant to wield this power, that he was destined to change the course of humanity itself. But each step he took toward the elixir, he felt himself slipping further away from reality, caught in a web of ancient rituals and dangerous alliances. His descent into madness became more apparent when he met Isabella, a mysterious woman with an even greater connection to the elixir than he could have ever imagined. Isabella, an enigmatic figure shrouded in mystery, claimed to have been searching for the elixir for most of her life. She seemed to know more about the ancient alchemy than any scholar, and Nadir could not help but trust her, perhaps because she, too, seemed obsessed with immortality. But as their relationship grew, Nadir began to question whether Isabella's true motives aligned with his own. Was she a rival, a member of the Order, or something far more dangerous, someone sent to lead him into a trap? As Nadir and Isabella's bond deepened, the final pieces of the puzzle fell into place. The map from Minahet's manuscript led them to a forgotten tomb beneath the streets of Alexandria, where they uncovered an ancient chamber filled with alchemical symbols and the fabled elixir itself. But standing before the elixir, Nadir realized something that changed everything. Its power was not just about living forever, it was about altering the very fabric of time and reality. The elixir could bend the laws of nature, creating endless cycles of life and death, but at a cost. The price of immortality was not simply a matter of living forever, it was a matter of controlling the flow of time itself. The room seemed to warp as Nadir felt the weight of the elixir's power in his hands. The very air around him crackled with energy, and he realized that consuming the elixir would not only grant him immortality, it would grant him the ability to control all life, to twist the threads of fate itself. But with this power came a terrible truth: the elixir came with a dark side. It had been created to preserve the power of the gods, to give them dominion over the world. Yet, for every life it preserved, another life would be sacrificed, and the cycle of life and death would be forever disrupted. In that moment, Nadir faced the ultimate choice: drink the elixir and claim immortality, with all its corrupting power, or destroy it and free the world from the curse it brought. But as he was about to make his decision, Isabella revealed her true intentions. She, too, had been after the elixir for centuries, not to keep it, but to destroy it, believing it was the only way to stop the ancient forces that had been controlling humanity for millennia. But Isabella's desire for vengeance against the Order, and her personal thirst for power, made Nadir question her true motives. As the two faced off in the ancient tomb, with the elixir between them, the walls began to crumble. The Order, sensing the endgame was near, launched a final assault to take the elixir for themselves. Nadir and Isabella found themselves caught in a race against time, battling not only for control of the elixir but for the future of humanity itself. In the final moments of the battle, as Nadir held the elixir in his hands, he had to decide: should he become the immortal ruler of the world, or should he destroy the elixir, ending the cycle of greed, power, and death? The fate of the world and his soul hung in the balance. The gods walk among us. The ancient gods of Egypt had long since faded into myth. Or so humanity thought. The great temples dedicated to Ra, Isis, and Osiris had crumbled, their once glorious statues reduced to dust. Yet their power, hidden away beneath layers of time, had never truly disappeared. For millennia, the gods had slumbered, trapped in the ether, watching humanity's rise and fall, waiting for the moment when they would return to claim what was once theirs. It all began with a strange series of events: natural disasters, inexplicable phenomena, and a series of strange dreams that plagued Amina Khalid, an Egyptologist with an ancient lineage of her own. Amina had always believed her studies of ancient Egypt to be purely academic, until she began having vivid dreams of ancient gods: Ra, the sun god, towering in his golden chariot; Isis, goddess of magic and healing, casting her powerful spells; and Osiris, his eyes glowing with an eerie, otherworldly light. These dreams were not just visions, they felt like memories, as though she had known these gods in another life. As she dug deeper into the ancient texts and relics she had been studying for years, Amina unearthed a long-forgotten prophecy, one that spoke of the return of the gods, of their coming back to the world in human form to guide and rule once more. The prophecy was clear: the gods would not return as distant, invisible forces. No, they would walk the earth again, incarnated in mortal flesh. And when they did, they would reshape the very fabric of civilization. Amina's fascination soon turned to dread as she learned that the gods were not just returning, they were already here. Disguised as ordinary humans, the gods had been living among the people for decades, quietly manipulating the course of history, subtly influencing global events, and watching as humanity spiraled into chaos. Each of the gods had found a vessel, a human host into which they could transfer their consciousness and power. But the process was delicate. The vessel had to be the perfect host, someone with both the physical and spiritual strength to bear the gods' immense power. The first sign that something was amiss came when Amina's path crossed with Ethan Cole, a brilliant but eccentric billionaire and philanthropist who had funded archaeological expeditions across the globe. His obsession with ancient Egypt was notorious, but it wasn't until their paths crossed at a conference on Egyptian history that Amina noticed something unsettling. Ethan's piercing eyes seemed to glow with an unnatural intensity, and his knowledge of ancient Egyptian rituals, far beyond what any scholar could possess, was both eerie and precise. He spoke as though he had lived through the ancient world, as if he had been a witness to the grandeur of Egypt's greatest kings. Amina was drawn to him, her scientific mind struggling to explain the strange pull she felt toward him. But what she didn't know was that Ethan was the reincarnation of Ra himself, the god of the sun, now walking among humans to reclaim his dominion over the world. His power was growing every day, and soon, he would be ready to unveil his true form to the world. But Ethan was not alone. Isabella Marlowe, a renowned archaeologist and rival to Amina, had also been investigating the mysteries surrounding the gods' return. What Amina didn't know was that Isabella was the human vessel for Isis, the goddess of magic and motherhood. Isabella had been quietly orchestrating events behind the scenes, sowing discord and chaos in the academic world while secretly aligning herself with powerful political figures. Under the guise of being a benefactor to Egyptology, she was amassing influence and preparing for the day when the gods would reclaim their rightful place at the top of the world's power structure. As Amina pieced together the puzzle, she realized that the gods' return was not a benevolent one. Their true intentions were far darker than she had imagined. They sought not to guide humanity, but to dominate it, to impose an order under which they would rule, using their divine powers to manipulate world leaders and governments, sowing division and war, to ensure their absolute control. But there was one god who did not fully embrace this plan, Imhotep, once a high priest of Osiris, whose soul had been trapped in a mortal vessel for centuries. Imhotep had come to realize the dangers of the gods' return. His original mission had been to safeguard humanity from their tyrannical rule, and he had been waiting for the right moment to stop them. Imhotep had remained hidden, living in the shadows as a member of the modern world's underground networks, seeking out allies who might help him thwart the gods' plans. When Amina finally met Imhotep, she was struck by his calm presence. He spoke in riddles, his words filled with ancient wisdom and cryptic warnings. He revealed to her that she, too, was more than just an academic, she was part of the ancient bloodline that had once served the gods. Her ancestors had known the truth of the gods' return, and they had sworn to stop them if they ever came back to the mortal world. Imhotep's message was clear, Amina was humanity's last hope. She had to stop the gods from fully manifesting their power. But she would not be able to do it alone. Ethan, now fully embraced by Ra's consciousness, had begun to influence global leaders, his actions pushing the world toward war and chaos. Isabella, as Isis, had already started creating a network of devoted followers, loyal only to the gods. And Osiris, having taken the form of a mysterious political leader in the Middle East, was quietly maneuvering to unite the world under his rule. Amina now found herself in the midst of an ancient battle, a battle between gods and mortals. She had to decide whether to embrace her ancestral legacy and fight alongside Imhotep to stop the gods' rise to power, or to join them in their reign, accepting their divine dominion over the earth. The stakes were higher than ever. The gods were preparing for a final confrontation, one that would reshape the world forever. Amina could either stand with the gods, who offered a future of unimaginable power, or against them, knowing that her choice could cost her everything. But there was one question that remained, was Amina truly ready to wield the power of the gods, or was she the key to stopping them once and for all? The Rosetta Stone Mystery. Dr. Elias Romano had always prided himself on his ability to decipher the hidden languages of the ancient world. A brilliant linguist with an obsession for dead languages, Elias had spent years poring over texts in obscure dialects, from Sumerian to ancient Greek. Yet, despite his success, there was one mystery that had eluded him, a riddle buried in the heart of the Rosetta Stone, a piece of history that had once unlocked the key to ancient Egyptian hieroglyphs. It had been over 2 centuries since the stone was first discovered in 1799, its trilingual inscriptions helping scholars crack the code of Egypt's forgotten language. But Elias believed there was more to the Rosetta Stone than anyone had realized. Hidden beneath its well-known translations lay a secret message, one that had been deliberately concealed, a message that could change everything humanity thought it knew about ancient Egypt. His obsession began when he came across an obscure reference to the Rosetta Stone in an ancient Egyptian text, a reference that suggested there was more than just a simple translation hidden within its inscriptions. According to the text, the Rosetta Stone had been designed not only to translate between languages but also to encode a secret that would reveal a forgotten prophecy and an ancient artifact of unimaginable power. Elias spent countless hours at the British Museum, meticulously studying the stone's inscriptions under a magnifying glass. His eyes burned from lack of sleep, and his mind raced as he noticed peculiarities others had missed, tiny anomalies in the carvings, seemingly innocuous symbols that didn't quite fit with the known translations. The first few days were frustrating, but then, an inkling of understanding began to form in his mind. The symbols weren't just a language, they were a map. A guide to an undiscovered tomb buried somewhere in Egypt, a tomb that held the key to a lost dynasty of pharaohs. The more Elias deciphered, the more he realized that the secret was far more dangerous than a simple treasure hunt. The map was not just a blueprint for finding an artifact, it was a map to a weapon, one powerful enough to alter the course of history. The stone had been hidden for a reason. The ancient Egyptians had created a deadly secret, one that had been locked away to prevent it from falling into the wrong hands. Elias was not the only one who had discovered the hidden message. His work drew the attention of a shadowy organization known as the Order of the Scales, a group of wealthy and influential individuals who had dedicated themselves to uncovering ancient Egyptian secrets and using them to control the modern world. The Order had been searching for the artifact for centuries, and now they had Elias in their sights. At first, Elias was unaware of the full extent of the Order's reach. They operated in the shadows, pulling strings behind the scenes of governments, financial institutions, and the very research institutions Elias held dear. But as his research began to uncover more about the artifact's location, Elias started receiving cryptic messages, threatening letters, strange phone calls, and finally, an attempt on his life. Someone wanted him to stop. Desperate for answers, Elias turned to his colleague, Lila Hunter, a former archaeologist with a deep knowledge of Egyptian mythology and a reputation for uncovering lost temples. Lila had once been a rising star in the world of Egyptology, but her career had ended abruptly after a controversial excavation that had unearthed the body of a forgotten queen. Now, she lived in the shadows, far from the limelight, and she knew more about the Order of the Scales than she was willing to admit. Together, they began to unravel the deeper meaning behind the Rosetta Stone's hidden code. As they worked, Elias discovered that the artifact it pointed to was no ordinary relic. It was an ancient artifact called the Eye of Horus, an object believed to hold the power to control fate itself. Legend said that the eye was crafted by the gods and hidden away by the pharaohs to protect humanity from forces too dangerous to be controlled. But it had been lost for millennia, its location concealed within the hieroglyphs of the Rosetta Stone itself. Elias and Lila's investigation took them deep into the heart of Egypt, to a hidden tomb buried beneath the shifting sands of the desert. But they were not alone in their quest. The Order of the Scales had followed them every step of the way, their agents closing in from all sides. As Elias and Lila reached the tomb, they were confronted by a masked figure, a member of the Order, who revealed that the Eye of Horus was not just an artifact, but a weapon of unimaginable power, capable of controlling time, life, and death. And the key to unlocking its full power lay within the hidden inscriptions of the Rosetta Stone. The tomb was a labyrinth of ancient traps, and the deeper they ventured, the more Elias began to realize that the artifact could not only rewrite history, it could change the fabric of reality itself. But there was a catch: only the purest of heart could wield its power. Anyone who sought the eye with selfish intent would be consumed by its magic, their soul trapped for eternity within the confines of the artifact. As they finally reached the chamber where the Eye of Horus was hidden, Elias faced the ultimate choice: unlock its power and risk plunging the world into chaos, or destroy it and keep its secrets buried forever. But just as he was about to make his decision, a shocking twist awaited him. Lila, who had become a trusted ally, revealed her true intentions. She had been working for the Order all along, manipulating Elias to find the artifact for them. But even as she betrayed him, Elias realized that her motives were not entirely her own. She, too, had been drawn into the web of fate by the power of the eye. In the final moments, with the Order closing in and time running out, Elias made his choice. He destroyed the artifact, sending the tomb into a violent collapse. But as the dust settled and the chamber fell silent, Elias realized that the Eye of Horus had not been destroyed, it had merely been hidden away, its power too great to ever be fully erased. With the Order defeated for now, Elias and Lila returned to their work, knowing that the mystery of the Rosetta Stone was far from over. The truth had been uncovered, but the journey to understand its full implications had only just begun. The betrayal of the high priestess. In the heart of ancient Egypt, beneath the towering columns of the temple of Isis, the high priestess Nephra stood at the altar, her eyes closed in reverence as she recited the sacred prayers. The sun was setting, casting a golden light across the temple's sacred halls, its rays bathing the walls in the warmth of Ra's blessing. But Nephra's mind was far from peaceful. A heavy burden weighed on her heart, one that she had kept hidden from her fellow priests and priestesses for years. She had always been a loyal servant of the goddess Isis, her devotion unwavering. But now, the very gods she had served for so long were demanding a sacrifice, one that threatened to destroy everything she had ever believed in. Nephra had never expected to fall in love. As a high priestess, she had taken a sacred vow of celibacy, bound to serve Isis and protect the sacred rituals of the temple. But when Amon, a brave and noble warrior, entered her life, everything changed. Their connection was immediate, a bond that transcended the boundaries of their worlds. Amon, fierce yet gentle, had won her heart with his unwavering courage and dedication to Egypt. He was a man of honor, a protector of the kingdom. In him, Nephra had found a kind of love she had only read about in the ancient scrolls. But this love came with a terrible price. In the quiet solitude of her chambers, Nephra had been visited by an oracle, an ancient vision granted by the goddess herself. The vision was a warning: their union would destroy Egypt. The prophecy was clear. Should Nephra and Amon remain together, the kingdom would fall. The gods had spoken, and their word was law. This forbidden love would tear apart the very fabric of Egypt, bringing ruin to the land and the people she had sworn to protect. Nephra was torn. Her heart longed for Amon, for the life they could build together, for the children they could have, for a future filled with love and joy. But her duty to Isis, to the gods, and to the people of Egypt weighed far heavier on her soul. The gods had given her a divine task, to preserve the kingdom at all costs. And if that meant sacrificing the one thing she held most dear, then she would do it. For the greater good. But as the days passed, Nephra found herself struggling more and more with the choice before her. Amon's love for her had become all-consuming, and his desire for a future together was more than she could bear. He spoke of marriage, of children, of ruling Egypt by her side. He promised to protect her and to stand beside her in every battle. But the gods had made their decree: the very act of their union would unravel Egypt's future. In a moment of desperation, Nephra turned to her closest confidant, Rhea, a fellow priestess who had been like a sister to her for many years. Rhea had always been the voice of reason, the one who offered Nephra comfort and counsel when the weight of the temple's duties became too much to bear. But Rhea, too, had her own secrets. As Nephra confided in Rhea, revealing her love for Amon and the prophecies she had received, Rhea's eyes gleamed with a strange, unsettling intensity. It was then that Nephra noticed the subtle shift in Rhea's demeanor, the way her smile seemed more forced, her words more clipped. Rhea was hiding something, something Nephra couldn't quite put her finger on. "What if you could have both?" Rhea asked, her voice smooth as silk. "What if you didn't have to choose between love and duty?" Nephra's brow furrowed. "What do you mean?" Rhea stepped closer, her expression becoming more intense. "The gods have given you a choice, yes. But they don't control everything. You have power too, Nephra. Power that even they cannot take from you." For the first time, doubt crept into Nephra's mind. Could there be another way? Could the gods be wrong? She had always believed in their divine will, but Rhea's words planted a seed of rebellion in her heart. What if she defied the gods? What if she chose Amon, chose love, and found a way to change the prophecy? Nephra's decision was made. She would defy the gods and live the life she had always dreamed of with Amon. But in doing so, she unknowingly stepped into a trap. Rhea, it seemed, had been playing her all along. Weeks later, when Nephra and Amon had secretly planned to escape the temple and begin their life together, the god struck. In a stunning betrayal, Rhea revealed her true allegiance. She was not simply a devoted priestess of Isis, she was a servant of the gods themselves, tasked with ensuring that the prophecy was fulfilled. She had manipulated Nephra, feeding her doubts and allowing her to believe there was a way to avoid the destruction foretold. But Rhea had been the one to set the wheels of fate in motion, guiding Nephra toward the very downfall she had been sworn to prevent. Rhea's betrayal was swift and brutal. In the dead of night, she led the temple's guards to Nephra and Amon, exposing their plans to the high priests. The lovers were caught, and in an act of divine wrath, they were both condemned to death. Nephra, heartbroken and betrayed, was forced to watch as Amon was dragged away, his fate sealed. And as for Nephra, her punishment was worse than death. She was stripped of her priestesshood, cast into the desert to die alone, forgotten by the gods she had once served so faithfully. In her final moments, Nephra realized the true depth of Rhea's treachery. It wasn't just love that had been sacrificed, it was the very soul of Egypt, now bound to the prophecy that would destroy everything. Nefre's love for Ammon had been the spark that set the prophecy into motion, and by defying the gods, she had sealed her own fate. As Nefre's life faded away, the winds of Egypt whispered her name, a name remembered only by the sands of time. But Rhea, the true betrayer, would go on to play a darker role in Egypt's future. For in her betrayal, she had not only destroyed the love between Nefre and Ammon, she had destroyed the last hope Egypt had of ever being free from the gods' control. The final revelation. The world had always been captivated by the mystery of the ancient pyramids, these towering monuments that had defied the passage of time, standing as silent witnesses to the rise and fall of empires. For centuries, scholars, adventurers, and treasure hunters had poured over the pyramids, seeking to uncover their secrets, but the truth had always eluded them. The most accepted belief was that the pyramids were elaborate tombs, designed to house the pharaohs and their treasures in the afterlife. But what if that wasn't the whole story? What if the pyramids had been built for a purpose far greater than anyone could ever imagine? Amina Khalid, the brilliant archaeologist with an unparalleled knowledge of ancient Egypt, had spent her life studying these ancient wonders. But as her research deepened, she began to uncover evidence that suggested the pyramids were not just tombs, they were keys. Keys to a cosmic power that had been hidden away for millennia, sealed within the very stones of the Giza Plateau. The discovery had come gradually, one fragment at a time. Ancient texts, long ignored or dismissed by mainstream scholars, spoke of a hidden chamber deep within the Great Pyramid of Giza. The chamber, it was said, contained not just the tomb of a pharaoh, but something far more extraordinary, an artifact that could open a portal to another dimension. This was no ordinary artifact. It was believed to be the Eye of Horus, an ancient relic imbued with the power to control time, space, and the very fabric of reality. Amina's obsession with the pyramids had led her to this moment. She had uncovered the hidden maps, deciphered the codes, and connected the dots between the ancient hieroglyphs and celestial alignments. But the deeper she dug, the more she realized that this discovery would change everything she thought she knew about history. The pyramids were not just built as tombs or for religious purposes. They were designed as a cosmic beacon, a gateway to something beyond human comprehension, and the key to unlocking this gateway lay within the very structure of the pyramids themselves. It was not just the Great Pyramid that held the secret. Amina soon discovered that all three pyramids of Giza were aligned with the stars in a precise pattern that mirrored the constellation of Orion, the mythical resting place of Osiris. But it wasn't just the stars that held the key. The internal chambers of the pyramids, the angles of the passages, the materials used, all had been carefully designed to channel cosmic energy. The pyramids were more than architectural marvels, they were instruments of immense power, a force waiting to be awakened. As Amina ventured deeper into the heart of the Great Pyramid, she found herself guided by a mysterious force, an ancient presence that seemed to be speaking to her through the very stones. This presence, she realized, was not just a spirit or a figment of her imagination. It was Osiris himself, the god of the afterlife, whose essence had been bound to the pyramid for millennia. Osiris had known the true purpose of the pyramids, and his soul had been trapped within them, waiting for the right person to unlock the hidden chamber and release the ancient power. Amina's journey took a darker turn when she discovered that she was not the only one seeking the power of the pyramids. Seth, the historian who had become her closest ally, and, unbeknownst to her, someone with a deeper connection to Egypt's past than she could have ever imagined, had his own reasons for wanting to unlock the secrets of the pyramids. It wasn't just knowledge he sought. Seth was connected to Osiris's bloodline, a descendant of a royal family whose legacy had been erased from history. For Seth, the pyramids represented not just a path to power, but to reclaiming his heritage. He was the key to unlocking Osiris's legacy, and he was willing to do whatever it took to claim it for himself. As Amina and Seth's paths converged, the true nature of the pyramid's power became clear. The Eye of Horus was not merely a relic, it was the physical manifestation of the god's dominion over time and space. Whoever controlled the eye would gain the ability to reshape reality itself. It was a power too great for any one person to wield, and its influence could either save humanity or destroy it. But Amina knew one thing: the power of the pyramids was too dangerous to be controlled by anyone, even someone like Seth, who believed his destiny was to wield it. In a final confrontation deep within the inner sanctum of the Great Pyramid, Amina and Seth came face to face with the terrifying truth. The pyramids had not just been designed to preserve the legacy of the pharaohs. They were built as a prison for the power of the gods, designed to keep it from falling into the wrong hands. But now, with the Eye of Horus in their grasp, the power of the gods was about to be released. And once unleashed, there would be no turning back. As Seth reached out to claim the eye, Amina realized that she had a choice to make. She could either allow Seth to take control of the eye, unleashing the power of the gods and allowing him to reshape the world according to his own vision, or she could destroy the eye, sealing away the ancient power forever, knowing that it would mean sacrificing everything she had worked for, including her own connection to the gods. With a heavy heart, Amina made the ultimate sacrifice. She destroyed the Eye of Horus, collapsing the chamber and sealing the power of the pyramids away once more. But as the stone walls of the pyramid closed around her, she realized that the destruction of the eye had not been the end of the story. The pyramid still stood, and the secrets of the gods were still buried beneath the sands of time. The power of the gods was never truly gone, it was merely waiting for the next person to uncover it. In the final moments, as the pyramid crumbled and Amina looked to the stars, she understood the true meaning of her journey. The pyramids were not just tombs or temples. They were more than monuments, they were beacons of something greater, something that transcended time and space. And while the Eye of Horus may have been destroyed, the cycle of the gods would continue, waiting for the next chosen one to unlock their secrets. But for now, Amina had made her choice. She had saved humanity from the power of the gods, but the price had been high. As the sands of Egypt shifted in the wind, Amina knew that the true final revelation had only just begun.